Barbara Nissman, and I am speaking to you from my music studio here in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. Now, normally I might be talking to you from the stage, but unfortunately, these are not normal times, but we're hoping we can get back to the stage sometime soon. But I thought I'd invite you in my studio and share with you the music of one of my favorite composers. Actually, I think he's everybody's favorite composer. And I am talking about the Russian composer, Sergei Rachmaninoff. Now, who could resist this beautiful melody? And that's the stuff of Hollywood films. Actually, if some of you know that classic film, Brief Encounter, the real star of that film was Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. And that theme that just keeps going on and on. How wonderful. And here's another wonderful melody, one of my favorites. The famous 18th variation from Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a Theme by Paganini for piano and orchestra. So this is a man that wrote with passion, with heart, went deep down into that dark Russian soul of his to share his feelings with us. Now, let me give you a bit of background about Rachmaninoff. He was born in Russia. He attended the Moscow Conservatory, and Tchaikovsky was a very important mentor in his life. He left Russia with his family in 1918 at the time of the Russian Revolution, and first went to Europe and eventually settled in the United States. Now the problem was, how was he going to make a living? But Rachmaninoff, being the genius that he was, wore three hats during his lifetime: as a composer, and he was a superb conductor, so good that the Boston Symphony even made him an offer to be their conductor, but he turned them down. And he decided to make his living as a touring pianist. And of course, he was at the top of his line, and he toured all through the United States at all these little towns. Unfortunately, I was born too late because I never heard him. But people said he was a phenomenon. And of course, after every concert, this tall, I think he was around 6'5", man would walk on the stage with that scowl on his face because he hardly ever smiled. And people would run to the stage and shout encores. You know, they shout the pieces they wanted him to play. And inevitably they would say, play it, meaning, of course, his famous C-sharp minor prelude. He wrote this prelude when he was just a young student. And he would walk to class at the Moscow Conservatory, and he would hear the tolling of these cathedral bells. And this sonority is what he describes in this prelude, this very famous prelude. And I remember this was one of the early pieces I heard as a child, because my older sister was trying to learn it when I was very young. I didn't learn it till much later. But this is the piece that everybody wanted after one of his concerts. So let me give it a try for you. You can hear those bells, those heavy bells tolling back and forth. He really picks up those sonorities. And needless to say, of course, Rachmaninoff must have gotten tired of playing this piece. And the pity of it was, he wrote it at such a young age, and of course at that age he didn't know anything about copyright or ownership, and he could have made a small fortune, but he gave it away for a few rubles. I also have to add that his last concert was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I played there a few years ago, and there's a wonderful statue to commemorate Rachmaninoff's final concert there in one of their parks. So if you're in Knoxville, you have to pay homage to Rachmaninoff. And you know, I was thinking about why his music is so popular. And it's obvious because he deals with emotions all of us know, the universal emotions. He talks, of course, without words, just in his music, about pain, loss, love, joy, depression, melancholy, yearning. Gosh, we all know those feelings. But he expresses them so well, and he takes you with him to a very deep and dark place. He allows you to travel with him. But the wonderful thing is he always manages to bring us out of there, back into the sunshine, giving us hope. Let me show you what I mean in one of the beautiful preludes he wrote. It's the G major prelude. And there's a portion where he gets very dramatic, and you can tell he's going to this other place. It's in minor. And then all of a sudden, when he brings us into major, there's like, oh, wow. We really see the sunshine seeping through. So see if you can follow this, or at least this is my interpretation of the work. See what I mean? I hope you heard just that moment when the sun came out. So, leaving us hopeful. He doesn't leave us in that dark place. But I think the problem that I myself have as a pianist and performer with Rachmaninoff music is it is so easy to go there with him. And in other words, to get caught up emotionally and the tears start to come, and you can't do that when you're performing in concert. So there's that fine line between how much freedom and how much control. In other words, too much freedom and you might lose control, and too much control and you lose that freedom of expression and you sound like an automaton. So with Rachmaninoff's music, it's a particular issue. So let me play for you this more dramatic prelude of his, the G sharp minor. I think as we go along, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's such emotional, passionate music. his G-sharp minor Prelude. Now, Rachmaninoff was a phenomenal pianist, and he also was blessed with these huge hands. Now, let me show you. I have small hands. I know they might look bigger than they are, but they're really, my span isn't very large. So I reach an octave. This is an octave. And if I stretch, I can reach a ninth, but I don't usually like to stretch my muscles. Now, Rachmaninoff, with his huge hands, could go from that C all the way up to, can you imagine? I can't even do that. I mean, and he did it with ease. And that'll give you some idea of how huge the hands were. And of course, this presents a challenge. His music presents a challenge to normal pianists and pianists like me with rather, small hands. I don't have a large span. So let me play for you one of his etudes, which will just show you what I'm talking about, because he makes us go in and out of the keyboard. And I keep thinking, oh, he probably played that piece so easily with those huge hands of his. But that's why we practice. That's his C minor etude. Now, we pianists have a joke about Rachmaninoff. I don't know if some of you are familiar with his Piano Concerto No. 3, and if you saw the movie Shine, that's what that movie was all about, that difficult piano concerto. Well, when you open up one page of that piece, I mean, if you look at it, it's all black. And we pianists say he wrote more notes per square inch than any other composer, and it's really true. But it's definitely worth learning. I mean, his music is so satisfying and glorious, and I can hear Rachmaninoff's voice in the back of my head saying, practice slowly, Barbara, because he always advocated slow practice. Now, I sometimes get carried away, so I have a problem with that. But he's right. He's absolutely right. Now, let me play for you another one of his etudes. Oh, and I forgot to mention, he didn't just call them etudes. He called them etude tableaux. So they were even bigger than etudes. In other words, study canvases, study paintings. These were huge and challenging pieces that he wrote. And you remember when we discussed the Chopin etudes, and I said to you that Chopin elevated the artistic level of the etude. Well, Rachmaninoff definitely did. Now, in this second etude I'm going to play, it's the C major. It's more lyrical, but you'll see how he really makes the pianist stretch the hand, especially in the left hand. So he doesn't make our life easy at all, but it's, as I said, it's definitely worth the effort. There you have that beautiful C major etude tableau. And Rachmaninoff used to say something interesting. And I think it really must be true of all composers. He used to say, "Oh, it's so much easier for me to write a concerto that takes 25 minutes. But to write a small, succinct piece like a prelude or an etude, that is difficult." But he managed beautifully. And let me play for you one more of these etude tableaus, because this is everybody's favorite, and it's nicknamed Little Red Riding Hood. Now, Rachmaninoff never believed in program music, and that's music that has a story to accompany it, because he believed that his music, of course, could speak for itself, and we don't need any words to explain what the music is saying. However, he did write to his friend Rhapsody about this piece, and he said, one night I was reading Little Red Riding Hood to my little girl, and suddenly I could hear all those sounds in my head, and then he immediately went downstairs and wrote this etude tableau. Now, I know you all know the story of Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, so I don't think I need to explain who's who in this story. I think you'll be able to figure it out if I do my job right. So, but it's really brilliant what Rachmaninoff has done with this fairy tale that all of us grew up with. retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. And now I just like to play one more composition for you, and it's part of a set of compositions Rachmaninoff wrote, which he called Six Moments Musicaux, 6 musical moments. And these were written while he was still a student, and he was a poor student, actually. I don't mean poor in terms of what he could deliver, but I mean he was a poor, starving student. That's what I meant to say. And he was robbed one day on the train of all his money, and he couldn't eat. He couldn't afford to eat, so he said to himself, okay, let me sit down at the piano and quickly write some pieces so I can deliver them to my publisher and get some money to buy a meal. And this is the 4th piece of the set, and actually it's one of my favorites. I love all these pieces, but I thought you would enjoy this one. And it also will give you an idea of the pianism that this man brought to his writing. There was a time, when Rachmaninoff was not in vogue, when people would turn up their nose at Rachmaninoff the way they did about the music of Tchaikovsky. Oh, it's too romantic, it's too sentimental, and it's really not at all. It happens to be very passionate. But I'm happy to say that with pianists, he was always in style, and we all love him and are all challenged by him and can't wait to study his music and keep practicing it. This is what I do in my music studio. So let me just give you an idea of the 4th musical moment. Moment Musical. And now you can understand why I spend so many hours in my studio trying to chip away and get a little closer at Rachmaninoff's wonderful music. And I can still hear him saying, Barbara, slow practice. And he's right. But let me leave you with one quote from Rachmaninoff, and it's a beautiful quote, and I'm quoting now. He said, "Music is enough for a lifetime." True, right? But a lifetime is not enough for music. And boy, how blessed we are, which also makes us think, oh, let's take advantage of every moment. So I wish you well, and please keep safe, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we will visit another one of my composer friends. And thank you so much.